Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your host and foreman Douglas Scoundrels. Today we are assembling the Protected Domain box for the Bayou and Neverborn faction. Box is a title box, so we have two masters, their title versions, and a shared keyword model. Those masters being Ulix Turner, Porkbelly Protector, Titania, Autumn Queen, and the shared model, the Erymanthian Boar. That is our artwork. Renders on the back. Ulix writing. Ulix, whatever. I've always called them Ulix because I was taught that's how the origins of the name Odysseus into Ulysses into Ulix was formed, but I could be very wrong on that. This guy is an Odysseus reference. Anyways, he's atop his lovely pig, Honey, firing fiery arrows. The Erymanthian Boar being a very leafy skeleton, and Titania with a lovely dress. Thank you, Weird, for giving her a pretty queen dress, and the sword that is not going to come back to bite her or anything. Let's look at our sprues. Alright, here we go. The boar itself is on its own sprue and doesn't have a whole ton of bits, so I'm happy for that. And then our two masters having a decent amount of bits. Titania here with what looks like a 12, maybe 13. And then Ulix with the Ulix, I'm going to say both. With the most, looking like around 17 bits for him and his lovely piggy. But that's the one we're going to go ahead and start with because we do them in render order on the back of the box. So let's look at his instructions first and then go over our assembly order. Okay, like most mounted characters, we will assemble the mount first and then add the rider afterwards. So for Honey, the pig, we'll grab A8 and A5, combine them. That's the body, of course. Then we will work on the back legs. This is our back right leg. And our back left leg is this fiery boy, which should have some extra fiery effect. I think A4 over here, which will add to the hoovesy. Then we can do our front legs, our front right leg, plus the magical effect that goes onto it, and our front left leg. Then we can combine both halves of the head together, as well as the tusks that go in the mouth, and glue that on, and we'll be done with Honey. And then we will combine Ulix together, grab the body, then actually we'll probably just glue the body onto the pig, then do the head, followed by the quiver over here, and right arm, left hand? We'll see. Also, there's a chain in here somewhere. I'll figure out where that goes. But anyways, let's just start with the body because we know that's where we're going to actually definitely begin. A8 and A5. Left side of the pig, plus the right side of the pig. There's our seam. Now let's work on our back right leg, which is going to be A13. And it'll go right there. Pig leg in. Now, let's do a 10, the back left leg. I'm going to go right there. But, okay, we have an extra little magic-y bit that is going to connect right here on the trotter. You can see the pill-shaped connection point that Weird loves in their assemblies. That bit specifically is a 4 right here. That's our flamey bit. All right. Let's now do our front right leg, which is A1. Gonna go right in there. Okay, next is the magical effect that is attached to it. Connection point being right there. The magical effect is A2. This guy. All right. There's the flamey effect. And our chain will attach in there. Didn't want to put it in until we got the leg situated, so we didn't actually knock it out of place. That bit being A12. There's the chain, kind of going in between these two, the horn and the flame effect. That's our angle. All right. Now let's do A16, which is our front left leg. Going right in there. All right. So now we can go ahead and work on the head of our piggy. Let's go ahead and grab A7 there, combine it with A15, and then we'll figure out the tusks, A9 and A... Okay, that's A7, so this is A6. Whatever. Combine the two halves of the head first. Change of plans, we're going to add the tusks to the head before we combine the two halves of the head. So here we go, having the right side, the left side of the head, my bad. You can see it's left side because here is our lovely connection bump. And we're going to go ahead and add A7, the tusks. You can see right in there. Now the orientation is weird, and I'm just going to, I think describing it's probably not going to do a very good job, so I'm just going to add it in and show you what it looks like in the end product. And there we go. Seems look great on the side of the head. Inside looks a little strange, but you can see that the gap is more or less filled. So now let's go ahead and add our tusks, our tusks A7? What letters are we on? A9, right. The A9 tusks to the right side of the head. Situation, just I'm going to go ahead and add it and then show you what the final product looks like. And there we go again. Same looks great on the outside and the inside. Kind of suspicious, but just trust the process. Now, to make sure that it all looks good, we will now combine the two halves of the head. And then the last thing you should do is then push on the two tusk bits, squeeze them together to close that gap, and that is how you have a pretty good pig head. All right, let's do that. And there we go. Now let's just add that to our pig body. Alright, we are all done with honey. Now let's add Ulix's body to the top, starting with A12 here. Now just park his butt right there. And we have an Ulix on his mount. Alright, next we'll go ahead and add the head right there, that bit being a 13 maybe? Okay, now let's do the quiver A3. Went on just fine. Now the left hand and the bow, which is going to be A17. And there's our bow. And we can finish off this model with a 14, I think. Just going to be the right arm and the arrow. Okay, glue it in at the elbow and make sure the arrow is touching the bow, just to make sure it's secure. But he is now done. Let's put him on a base. Ulix Turner Porkbelly Protector is done. Pretty complicated model. It's going to be complicated with 17 bits. Most of it went together without an issue, but a big pain with the tusks inside of the mouth. Figuring out how they're supposed to orient and getting them together and in was difficult. It was difficult. Any other pains really just fitting the chain in there was not super easy, but I'm not sure if it'd be easier to do it before the leg and risk knocking it out of place when you put the leg on or not. And Ulix with a very thin arrow is always something you need to worry about, making sure you don't accidentally snap that in half. But, very gorgeous model. Let's move on to something easier now. Whew, now that we're done with that, let's do something slightly easier, the Erymanthian Boar. Only 5 bits, so let's add the two halves of the body together. Then we can go ahead and do the front right leg and the ribs, the front left right leg and the ribs, and finish with the tusks. So let's grab D1 and D2. And let's look at the instructions. Left half plus our right half. Alright, Next, we'll do D3, which is going to be our ribs and front right leg. There we are. Now D4, the ribs and front left leg. Easy enough. And then our tusks, which are going to fit right under here, D5. Make sure they are going in that direction. But yeah, we're done. Let's put them on a base. The Erymanthian Boar is done. Easy model, 5 bits. Hardest part was the tusks, because they're the smallest and have the smallest connection point. But a good palette cleanser after Ulix, and I think we're going to get into something pretty tough again, so we might as well move on to our queen. Okay, so for Titania, we're going to go ahead and complete the entirety of Titania first herself. So grab the body, add the skirt on, do the, just got a foot around here somewhere. Yep, there's the foot. Then we can do her left arm, both of her wings, and then the 2 halves of the crown, 1 and 2. Once she's all done, we'll figure out how to assemble the base. This is sort of our base, and then Titania and this vine with the sword, as well as this extra vine, should all attach to it, including this bit too. But let's look at our instructions, and then go ahead and cut out B7 and B4. Okay, here's B4. Now let's add B7, the front of the skirt. And there is our seam. I can probably close that up, but let's go ahead and add B2, the left foot right there. There we go. Cool. All right, next will be her left arm. Let me find it on the sprue. That'll have to be B12. I'm gonna go right there. All right. Our left arm is in. Now we're going to set her down, and I think we're going to combine the 2 wings together first, B8 and B9, and then we'll slap those onto her back. Actually, no, I think we'll be fine adding them one at a time, so I'm going to go ahead and say we need to do B9, the left wing first, which will take up the pill-shaped connection point on her back. Like so. Now let's do B8, the right wing. Okay. There we go. Now it looks like the crown might be able to combine together. I'll look at that real quick. Here's B10. This will be the left side of her head, but B3 will fit right underneath it to complete the sort of crown of her head, as well as the antler crown as well. All those branches. I don't freaking know. So effectively, B3... Yeah, I'll just show you. Here is the bottom of B10 with B3 added. There is this tab on B3 that'll fit onto the slot in B10. Push that down to make sure that the crown spreads apart as far as it can. But now we'll just go ahead and add this to her head, this part being the front of her head and this part being the back. And a 1 and 2. It looks great. Probably should have done it before we put the wings on, my bad. Alright, let's go ahead and start on our base now. Let's first grab B1 and then we will add B2 to it. Here is B1 with this being the bottom. So we want to turn it to here. See this nice crevice that isn't on like the ground level. And that is where B2 is going to sit. There's B2. Next, we'll do the sword that's held up by a vine or a root or whatever, which is B6, and that should attach, I believe, right in there. Actually, no, we need to start with B11, this vine here, which we will eventually attach to Titania, and that one is going to go in the slot above where we were going to put B6. All right. That's in. Now we'll actually attach Titania to this before we do the sword vine root thing. You'll notice a nice, lovely connection pill shape here. And there was supposed to be another one around here. It just doesn't look very well defined, sadly. That first one we pointed out is going to attach right here on her, and then there's this hole here that you would think the other one would attach on, but I did not see an actual connection point on that. So whatever, it will still follow up this path along her. So let's attach it. Okay, now that that is attached, we can finally do our route with the sword and call her good. So now attach that. There we go. Okay, she's all done. Put her on a 40. Titania Autumn Queen is done. A decently difficult model. Hardest part easily was figuring out how the crown went together and onto her head, but the vines around the base, roots, whatever, were also slightly wonky. Overall, like maybe a 6, 7 out of 10 difficulty. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good number, but she's very gorgeous, so I think it's worth the trouble of putting her together. Anyways, so let's look at the whole box now. The protected domain box is done, containing Ulix Turner Porkbelly Protector, the Erymanthian Boar, and Titania Autumn Queen. The title characters are relatively difficult builds, especially the tusks on Ulix and the crown on Titania. Also, those are relatively small bits, so you have a chance of losing them in your carpet. Please don't do that. I'd say overall, the higher difficulty lied in Titania because everything else on Ulix was relatively easy to go together. Titania had some order of operations issues as well. So I'd give this box 7. I don't know why I'm rating all of a sudden. I still think a 7 out of 10 is probably pretty good. Maybe an 8. Yeah, an 8 sounds good. All right. And absolutely no difficulty with Erymanthian Boar. Anyways, I've been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.